My wife told me to stop being so dramatic after her daughter spent $200 on my debit card without asking, so I ruined her date. That was 9 weeks ago. Yesterday, she collapsed on the kitchen floor holding her daughter's unlocked tablet. I was 7 years old when I fell in love with my girl best friend Sophia. I just remember sitting on the swings with her and thinking that her eyes were really cool. But right before I could say anything, she told me about her new crush at the time, Tyler. This pretty much set the tone for the rest of our friendship until we both turned 19. We were in the same college course, and she came over to my dorm one night when she was drunk as heck. You know, Andrew, you're cute. I wasn't sure what she meant until she started to lean in, but because of how drunk she was, I rejected it. I didn't want her to do anything she regretted. And the next day, we didn't talk about it. Actually, we never talked about it again. And 2 years later, she was married to some other dude, and we distanced. The whole time, I stayed single, because I was so in love with Sophia that it wouldn't have been fair to any other girl. But 4 years later, when they divorced, we started talking again. It's now been 17 years since they divorced, and we're officially together, and married too. Everything about our relationship has been a dream. Well, kind of. There was one caveat, her 17-year-old daughter, Becky. And despite Sophia having a literal restraining order against her ex, Becky could never get used to me. And this combined with her brattiness was a deadly combo. One time, she asked to borrow my debit card to pay for a school trip. And from the parenting books, I learned that trusting your kids is essential for a good relationship. So I ignored my instincts and let her. But then I got the phone notification. She had spent over $200 on Zara. I didn't want to overstep, so I went to Sophia first, instead of Becky. She probably thought she had your permission. Don't be dramatic. Well, I didn't care about being right or powerful. I just wanted our family to be happy, so I automatically agreed with her. But then, not even 2 weeks later, Sophia ripped my heart out of my chest and crapped all over it. I let her borrow my work laptop so she could play music while she got ready for school. I told her to make sure not to download anything, because if I got any viruses, I would be screwed. She smiled and even gave me a hug, and I thought we were actually getting somewhere. I was in the car on the way to work when I got stuck in traffic. F it, I thought to myself. May as well review the project I'm presenting today. But as I took it out, the screen glitched, froze, and went completely black. Turns out, she'd downloaded some sketchy music app that installed malware, wiped half my files, and corrupted the entire presentation folder. The folder I had been working on for the last 6 months, the one that determines whether or not I get a promotion, the one that the CEO, VP, and president of the company was going to watch. I damn near almost cried. Luckily, I had a pretty good company reputation, so they believed me and let me off the hook. I waited till I got home to bring it up to Sophia. I started off by telling her I didn't get my promotion, and her face automatically fell. Oh baby, it's okay. There'll be other chances, and it's because of Becky. I interrupted her consolation. She immediately wiped the look of sadness from her face, and we spent the next 10 minutes arguing about whether or not she had meant to do it. In the end, I conceded. I felt so fed up that I didn't even bring it up to Becky. Instead, she brought it up to me. It was the following morning, and she came into my bedroom. Hey, Mom told me what happened. I'm sorry, she said, voice shaking. My face immediately lit up. Hey, it's okay. These things happen. The most important thing is that we own up to our mistakes and apologize. I didn't know it at the time, but the worst was yet to come, because that's when she asked me to borrow my car for an outdoor movie night in the local park. Again, I thought about the parenting books and agreed. Thank you, Dad. Thank you. And she gave me a big hug. It was the first time she had called me Dad. I smiled for so long my cheekbones started hurting. That evening, I was going to surprise her with a McDonald's meal I had ordered for her. But just as I was about to walk into her room, I heard her on the phone with her friend. I swear parents are the dumbest people alive. My stepdad actually thinks I like him. Like, I want your car, not you. I dropped the bag of McDonald's right on the floor. I was so hurt that my heart felt like it was burning up. I knew if I thought about it any longer, I would do something I'd regret. So I just went to bed. But the next day, I had my little petty revenge plan set into place. I called my buddy whose job it is to tow cars, and everything was going according to plan. Long story short, my car was brought to the auto repair shop. But when I looked inside the car, it wasn't just Becky in the back seat, because apparently she was on a date that I had just ruined. When I saw the look of embarrassment mixed with shock on her face, I couldn't help but laugh. But she wasn't laughing. I saw a flicker of anger in her eyes. Ooh, big and scary Becky. Like, what is she gonna do? Well, I soon found out just what she had up her sleeve. You're going to regret this, she muttered as she stormed past me, dragging her date along. I drove her home, the silence in the car so thick you could cut it with a knife. When we got home, she ran straight to Sophia, who was waiting at the door with her arms crossed. What the hell, Andrew? Sophia demanded. You had our daughter's car towed while she was on a date? What kind of power move is that? I tried explaining what happened. The McDonald's, the phone conversation I overheard, how Becky was only using me. Sophia's expression softened slightly, but she still thought my reaction was extreme. We'll talk to her together, she promised. But you can't pull stunts like this. She's a teenager. They say stupid things to their friends. That night, Becky refused to come out of her room for our family meeting. The next morning, she was eerily pleasant at breakfast, smiling sweetly and asking about my day ahead. Something about her sudden change in demeanor sent chills down my spine. This wasn't over. I went to work distracted, wondering what Becky might be planning. By lunchtime, I had a dozen missed calls from Sophia. When I finally reached her, she was hysterical. The school just called, she sobbed. Becky told her guidance counselor that you've been inappropriate with her. Andrew, they're launching an investigation. They've already called CPS. My blood ran cold. This wasn't some teenage prank. This was my life, my reputation, my freedom potentially on the line. All because I'd tried to teach a manipulative teenager a lesson about honesty. She's lying, I managed to say through the shock. You know she's lying, right? The pause before Sophia answered felt like an eternity. I want to believe you, she finally said. But why would she make something like this up? I felt like the air had been sucked out of my lungs. The car ride home was a blur. I kept replaying Sophia's words in my head. That hesitation before saying she believed me. Did she really think I was capable of something so vile? Did she not know me at all after all these years? The streets passed by in a haze as my mind raced through every interaction I'd ever had with Becky, searching desperately for anything that could have been misinterpreted. When I got home, Becky was sitting at the kitchen counter eating cereal like nothing had happened. Her eyes flicked up to me for just a second, and I swear I saw a tiny smirk before she looked back down at her phone. Sophia was pacing in the living room, her face tear-streaked and pale, her hands nervously twisting the hem of her sweater. What exactly did she say to the counselor? I asked Sophia, trying to keep my voice steady despite the growing knot in my stomach. Sophia glanced nervously toward Becky, who was pretending not to listen while obviously hanging on every word. "Let's talk in our room," she whispered, leading me down the hallway with tense shoulders. Once the bedroom door closed behind us, Sophia broke down. According to the school counselor, Becky had claimed I'd been making her uncomfortable with lingering hugs and walking in on her changing. Complete fabrications, but just vague enough to raise serious concerns without being immediately dismissible. The calculated nature of it chilled me to the core. "You know none of this is true, right?" I said, my voice cracking with emotion. "This is because I embarrassed her with the car. She told me I'd regret it. Those were her exact words, Sophia." Sophia rubbed her temples, her wedding ring catching the light as she did. "I want to believe you, Andrew. I do. But you have to admit, the timing of your car prank it looks bad, like you were trying to catch her in a compromising position." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Are you serious right now? I had no idea she was on a date, and even if I did, why would I? God, Sophia, you know me. After 10 years together, how can you even entertain the thought?" She wouldn't look me in the eye, focusing instead on a family photo on our dresser from happier times. "CPS is coming tomorrow for an initial assessment. They'll want to talk to all of us separately." That night, I slept on the couch, or tried to sleep anyway. Every creak of the house set my nerves on edge, each shadow making my heart race. The home that had always been my sanctuary now felt like hostile territory. Around 3 a.m., I heard footsteps and froze. Becky appeared in the doorway of the living room, just watching me. When she realized I was awake, she didn't even flinch. "You should have just let me have the car," she said flatly, her silhouette framed against the dim hallway light. "Becky, this has gone way too far," I whispered, sitting up. "Do you understand what you're doing? These kinds of accusations ruin lives. They destroy families. Is that what you want?" She shrugged, the casual gesture so at odds with the severity of the situation. "Maybe you should have thought about that before embarrassing me in front of Jake. He hasn't texted me back, you know. Probably thinks I'm a total loser with a psycho stepdad. So this is about a boy?" I couldn't keep the disbelief from my voice. "You're willing to destroy our family over a high school crush? The family we've built together for all these years? You're not my family," she said, and walked back to her room, leaving me alone with the crushing weight of her words. I barely made it through the CPS interview the next day. The caseworker, Patricia, was professional, but I could feel her scrutinizing every expression, every gesture, looking for signs of deception. Her pen hovered continuously over her notepad, ready to document any suspicious response. I told her everything, from my history with Sophia to the recent incidents with Becky. When I mentioned overhearing Becky's phone conversation about using me for my car, Patricia's expression never changed. "And you felt it was appropriate to retaliate against your stepdaughter by having her car towed while she was with a friend?" she asked, making notes in her leather-bound portfolio. "It wasn't retaliation," I insisted, leaning forward earnestly. "It was supposed to be a lesson about honesty. I had no idea she was with anyone. And it wasn't her car. It's my car that she borrowed. I was trying to parent, not punish." Patricia just nodded, her face carefully neutral. "Mr. Mitchell, has your relationship with Becky always been strained, or is this a recent development?" I explained how close we'd been when she was younger, how things changed in her teens, how I tried everything to connect with her, supporting her hobbies, attending every school event, even learning about her favorite bands just to have something to talk about. How this felt like the ultimate betrayal after years of trying to be a good stepfather. "And you've never behaved inappropriately toward her?" Patricia asked directly, her eyes locked on mine. "Never," I said, looking her straight in the eyes. "I would never harm Becky or any child in any way. The very suggestion makes me physically ill." After Patricia left, the house felt like a war zone. Sophia told me that Becky had doubled down on her story, adding new details about times I'd allegedly made comments about her appearance. It was like watching my life collapse in slow motion, helpless to stop the destruction. "I think you should stay with a friend for a few days," Sophia finally said that evening, her voice barely above a whisper. "Just until this gets sorted out." My heart shattered. "You're kicking me out of my own home, based on lies?" "I'm trying to protect everyone here," she said weakly, wrapping her arms around herself as if cold. "If you're innocent, this will all blow over." If I'm innocent?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "After everything we've been through, you can't even say you know I wouldn't do this?" She wouldn't look at me, her gaze fixed on the floor between us like an unbridgeable chasm. "I don't know what to believe anymore, Andrew." I packed a bag while Becky watched from her bedroom doorway, her stance triumphant despite her carefully neutral expression. As I headed for the front door, I heard her whisper, "Bye, Dad," in a mocking tone that twisted the knife even deeper. I stayed with my friend Robert for the next week. My boss was understanding enough to let me work remotely, though the whispers had already started at the office. Someone from HR called to check in about the situation. Apparently, Sophia had mentioned it to a coworker who knew someone in my company. The rumor mill was running full speed, turning my professional reputation to dust. The isolation was the worst part. Most of my friends were also friends with Sophia, and they weren't sure who to believe. People stopped returning my calls. Invitations dried up. Social media became a minefield. My sister, Jessica, was the only one who stood by me unquestioningly. "Becky's been manipulating situations for years," she reminded me during one of our late-night calls. "Remember when she told everyone I knocked over her science project on purpose? The girl is a pathological liar when she wants something." 10 days after moving out, I got a text from an unknown number. "I know Becky is lying. Meet me at Riverside Park at 4 p.m. today. Come alone." The message stared at me from my screen, both tantalizing and terrifying in its possibilities. I probably should have been more cautious, but I was desperate for any support. I showed up at the park and found a gangly teenage boy sitting on a bench, nervously bouncing his leg, his dark hair falling into his eyes as he scanned the area. "Are you Andrew?" he asked as I approached. When I nodded, he continued, "I'm Jake. I was with Becky in your car that night." We sat down, and Jake told me everything. He and Becky had been casually dating for a few weeks. That night, she'd bragged about how she could get whatever she wanted from her stupid stepdad just by pretending to be nice to him. She'd even shown Jake the text where she'd told her friend about only wanting my car, not me. She wanted to, hook up in your car because she thought it would be funny, Jake admitted, looking uncomfortable, his cheeks flushing with embarrassment. "She kept saying stuff about how she was going to get your credit card info next, maybe order some stuff online. She laughed about how easy you were to manipulate." "So why are you telling me this?" I asked, suspicious that this might be another trap in an increasingly complex web of deception. Jake looked down, scuffing his sneaker against the pavement. "Because she's doing the same thing to me now. I broke things off after that night. The way she talked about you freaked me out. So she told everyone at school I forced myself on her in your car. Now nobody's talking to me, and the principal called my parents. I felt simultaneously vindicated and horrified. Do you have those texts she sent you about using me for my car? Jake nodded, already pulling out his phone. I saved everything. I was going to show the principal, but then I heard about what she's saying you did, and I got scared they'd think I was just trying to get back at her. We spent the next hour making a plan. Jake would forward me all the texts. I'd talk to Patricia from CPS and show her the evidence. Maybe, just maybe, this nightmare could end, and I could reclaim my life and reputation. What I didn't count on was Becky's ability to stay one step ahead. When I tried calling Patricia the next day, she informed me that Becky had already told them about Jake, casting him as a bitter ex who would say anything to hurt her. She'd even shed tears about how Jake was pressuring her to change her story about me. These text messages could have been fabricated, Patricia said when I forwarded Jake's evidence, her tone measured but skeptical. We see this kind of retaliation in cases like yours quite often. Cases like mine? I repeated, my grip tightening on the phone. You mean cases where innocent people are being set up by manipulative teenagers? Patricia's silence spoke volumes. In her mind, I was already guilty. Another predator claiming innocence despite damning evidence. That night, I hit rock bottom. I sat in Robert's guest room staring at old family photos on my phone. Becky's 10th birthday when she'd hugged me so tight after opening the art set I'd bought her. Christmas morning when she'd insisted I help her build the Lego set Santa brought. Where had that little girl gone? How had we ended up here? With her determined to destroy me and everything I loved? My phone buzzed with a text from Sophia. Need to talk. Can you come by tomorrow when Becky's at school? 10 a.m. The message glowed in the darkness, a tiny beacon of possible hope. I barely slept that night, alternating between hope that Sophia had finally seen through Becky's lies and fear that this was just another ambush. When I arrived at our house, no longer feeling like my home, Sophia looked terrible. Dark circles under her eyes, hair unwashed, wearing the same sweatshirt she'd had on when I left almost 2 weeks ago. I found something, she said, leading me to the kitchen table. She pushed a tablet toward me. Becky left this unlocked. It was open to Becky's Instagram direct messages with someone called Karma Queen 97. The messages went back months, detailing her plans to get rid of me. Apparently, she'd been telling her online friend about all her schemes, the debit card, the laptop virus, using me for my car. The latest messages were about the false accusations, with Karma Queen 97 coaching her on what to say to make her story more believable. There's more, Sophia said, swiping to a different conversation. She's been in contact with Mark. They've been planning for her to move in with him once she turns 18 next year. Mark, the ex with anger issues and a restraining order. The man who'd made Sophia fear for her safety. He was behind this? He's been feeding her lines about how I stole her real family from her, Sophia whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. Telling her that I betrayed them by marrying you, that I'm dead to him, that she's the only connection he has left to his real family. The puzzle pieces finally clicked together. Becky's sudden change when she hit her teens wasn't just typical adolescent rebellion. It coincided with Mark finding ways to contact her behind Sophia's back. He'd been poisoning her against us for years, planting seeds of resentment that had finally bloomed into this nightmare. Have you shown this to Patricia? I asked, hope rising in my chest for the first time in weeks. Sophia nodded, tears streaming down her face. This morning. She's reopening the investigation, focusing on Mark's involvement now. Just then, the front door slammed open. Becky stood there, face contorted with rage. She was supposed to be at school, but obviously, she'd somehow figured out what was happening. You went through my tablet? She screamed at Sophia. How could you? I'm your daughter. Becky, calm down, Sophia said, standing up. We need to talk about your father, about the things he's been telling you to do. Don't call him that, I said automatically, then immediately regretted it when Becky's furious gaze locked onto me. You, she hissed. This is all your fault. We were fine before you came back into our lives. Dad said you'd try to turn Mom against me. He was right about everything. Your dad is manipulating you, Sophia said gently. The things he's asked you to do, the lies he's told you to tell about Andrew. They're wrong, Becky. They could have sent an innocent man to jail. Becky's face crumpled briefly before hardening again. You don't understand. Dad needs me. I'm all he has left. So you were willing to destroy me to please him? I asked, unable to keep the hurt from my voice. After everything we've been through together? You're not my real dad, she shot back. You're just some pathetic guy who was obsessed with my mom for like 20 years. It's creepy. That stung, but I could see now that these weren't really her words. They were Mark's, planted in her impressionable mind and nurtured by his toxic influence. Maybe I'm not your biological father, I said carefully, but I've loved you since you were 5 years old, Becky. I was there when you were afraid of thunderstorms and needed someone to check under your bed for monsters. I helped you with your science fair projects and taught you to ride a bike. Where was Mark during all of that? Something flickered in her eyes. Doubt, maybe, or a distant memory of the bond we'd once shared, but it disappeared quickly. I hate you both, she declared, grabbing her keys from the hook by the door. I'm going to Dad's. At least he actually wants me. Becky, wait, Sophia called, but she was already gone, the door slamming behind her. Sophia collapsed onto a chair, sobbing. This is all my fault. I should have seen what Mark was doing. I sat beside her, tentatively taking her hand. It's not your fault. Mark is obviously still the same manipulative person he always was. He just found a new target. We need to stop her, Sophia said suddenly, standing up. Mark's restraining order is still in effect. We jumped in Sophia's car and followed the route to Mark's apartment. Sure enough, Becky's car, technically my car that she used, was parked haphazardly in the visitor's spot. Sophia and I exchanged a nervous glance before approaching the building. We could hear the shouting before we even reached Mark's door. Becky's voice, high and panicked. You said they wouldn't find out! You promised! Mark's response was too muffled to make out, but his tone was angry. Sophia pounded on the door. Mark, open up! Becky, are you okay? The door flew open, revealing Mark, older and somehow smaller than I remembered, with bloodshot eyes and a day's worth of stubble. Behind him, Becky stood with her arms crossed, mascara streaking down her cheeks. Well, well, Mark sneered. If it isn't the happy couple. Becky, come on, Sophia said, ignoring him. We're going home. She's not going anywhere with you, Mark said, stepping in front of Becky. She finally sees you both for what you really are. I noticed Mark's hands shaking slightly, his pupils dilated. He was on something. The realization made my stomach clench with fear for Becky's safety. Mark, I said calmly, you're violating your restraining order right now. Sophia could call the police. Let's not make this situation worse. He laughed bitterly. Go ahead, call them. I'll tell them all about how you've been messing with my daughter. Who do you think they'll believe? They'll believe the evidence, Sophia said firmly. We have Becky's messages, Mark. We know you put her up to lying about Andrew. It's over. Mark's face contorted with rage. He lunged forward, grabbing Sophia's arm roughly. You think you can threaten me? me? In my own home? I reacted instinctively, shoving myself between them. Don't touch her, I warned. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. Mark swung wildly at me, his fist grazing my jaw. I stumbled backward, bumping into a side table. A framed photo crashed to the floor, glass shattering. Stop it! Becky screamed, her voice breaking. Dad, stop! This isn't what you promised. Mark froze, turning to Becky with an expression I couldn't read. What are you talking about? I'm protecting you from them. No, you're not, Becky said, backing away from him. You told me if I got rid of Andrew, we could be a family again. You said Mom would come back to you, but you're just using me like you used to use her. The raw hurt in her voice pierced through everything else. This wasn't the manipulative teenager who'd been tormenting me. This was a confused, heartbroken girl who'd been pulled between warring adults for most of her life. Becky, Sophia said softly, whatever your father promised you wasn't real. He can't force me to come back to him. That's not how love works. She never loved me, Mark spat. She just took you and left when things got tough. You hit me, Mark, Sophia said quietly. Things didn't get tough. You became abusive. That's why there's a restraining order. Becky looked at her father in shock. You hit Mom? You told me she overreacted because you threw a plate once when you were mad. Mark's expression darkened. She's lying, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. She's not, I said gently. I saw the bruises, Becky. I helped your mom move out while you were at your grandmother's that weekend. There were holes punched in the walls of your old apartment. Becky's face crumpled as the truth sank in. She looked at her father, really looked at him maybe for the first time. You used me, she whispered. Bex, no, Mark tried, reaching for her. She recoiled from his touch. Don't call me that. You made me hurt Andrew for nothing. You made me lie. You made me. Her voice broke as tears streamed down her face. I think we should go, Sophia said firmly, putting an arm around Becky's shoulders. This time, Becky didn't pull away. This isn't over, Mark threatened as we backed toward the door. She's my daughter too. Yes, she is, I acknowledged. But right now, you need help, Mark. And until you get it, you're only hurting her more. We left with Becky between us, her body shaking with silent sobs. In the parking lot, she suddenly turned and hugged me fiercely. I'm so sorry, she choked out. Andrew, I'm so sorry. I held her tight, my own eyes filling with tears. I know, kiddo, I know. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. There were still CPS investigations to close, trust to rebuild, and years of manipulation to unravel. But as we drove home together, the three of us, a family despite everything, I felt something I hadn't experienced in weeks. Hope. The drive home was dead silent. I kept glancing in the rearview mirror at Becky, who was staring out the window with puffy eyes. Sophia clutched my hand over the center console so tight it almost hurt. Nobody knew what to say. What do you say after something like that? The truth was out, but the damage was already done. We got home around dinner time, but nobody was hungry. Becky immediately went to her room and shut the door. Not slammed it, just closed it quietly, which somehow felt worse. Sophia collapsed on the couch, emotionally drained. I should have seen it, she whispered for like the 10th time. All those years, Mark was poisoning her against us. I sat next to her, not sure if I was ready to comfort her yet. Part of me was still hurt that she'd doubted me at all. You couldn't have known. He was careful. We ordered pizza that nobody ate. I knocked on Becky's door around 9 p.m. with a plate, but she just mumbled that she wasn't hungry. I left it outside her door anyway. The next morning, Patricia from CPS called. Sophia put her on speaker while we sat at the kitchen table. Based on the new evidence and Becky's revised statement, we're closing the investigation against Mr. Mitchell, she said, her voice all professional. However, we are opening a case regarding Mr. Wilson's manipulation of a minor. When the call ended, I should have felt relieved, but honestly, I just felt hollow. My name was cleared, but you can't just erase accusations like that. They leave marks. What happens now? I asked Sophia. She looked as lost as I felt. I don't know. Family therapy, I guess. We can't just pretend none of this happened. Around noon, Becky finally emerged from her room looking like she hadn't slept at all. She stood awkwardly in the kitchen doorway, arms wrapped around herself. Can we talk? She asked, voice barely audible. We moved to the living room. Becky sat on the edge of the armchair, not looking at either of us. I don't expect you to forgive me, she started, her voice cracking. What I did was horrible. I believed Dad because I wanted to believe him. He said if I got rid of Andrew, we could be a real family again. Becky, Sophia began, but Becky cut her off. Please let me finish. I need to say this. She took a deep breath. I've been talking to Dad behind your back since I was 13. He found me on Instagram with a fake account. He told me Mom took me away for no reason, that she was the one who broke up our family by overreacting. My heart sank. All those years, all those changes in her behavior, it suddenly made sense. At first, it was just talking. Then last year, he started suggesting ways I could make Andrew look bad. Small stuff at first, like the debit card. He said if I could prove Andrew wasn't a good stepdad, maybe you'd see you made a mistake, Mom. Sophia was crying silently now. The laptop wasn't my idea, Becky continued, staring at the floor. Dad found the virus program. He told me exactly what to download. Then after the car thing, she swallowed hard. He said the only way to get rid of Andrew for good was to say he was inappropriate with me. He coached me on exactly what to say to the counselor. I felt sick to my stomach. Mark hadn't just manipulated Becky. He'd weaponized her. Why didn't you tell me your dad was contacting you? Sophia asked, her voice shaking. Becky finally looked up, tears streaming down her face. He made me promise not to. He said you'd just try to keep us apart again, that you'd brainwash me against him like you tried to do before. I noticed she'd started calling him Dad instead of Dad through this confession. Small progress. I need you both to know something, I said, finally finding my voice. What happened yesterday at Mark's apartment? That wasn't the first time I've seen him like that. The night your mom called me after they separated when I came over to help, Mark showed up drunk, pounding on the door, screaming that he'd kill me if I didn't leave. Your mom was terrified. Becky's eyes widened. He never told me that part. Of course he didn't, Sophia said gently. He never told you about the time he threw me against a wall because dinner was cold either, or the time he smashed all our dishes because I got home late from work. Becky started sobbing then, big gulping cries that shook her whole body. I wanted to comfort her, but I wasn't sure where we stood. Sophia moved to the arm of her chair and pulled her close. I'm so sorry, Becky kept repeating between sobs. I ruined everything. I took a deep breath. Not everything, but you did damage a lot of things that will take time to repair. That weekend we started family therapy with Dr. Thomas. At the first session, he had us sit in this triangle arrangement where we all had to make eye contact. Becky, he said after we'd gone through the basics, I'd like you to tell Andrew and Sophia exactly what you're feeling right now, not what you think they want to hear. The raw truth. Becky looked terrified. I feel ashamed and scared that I've broken our family forever. Andrew, how about you? Dr. Thomas prompted. I struggled to find the right words. I feel betrayed and sad about losing years of our relationship to Mark's manipulation, but I also feel determined to rebuild. Sophia went last. I feel guilty for not protecting either of you better and angry at Mark. So So angry. Dr. Thomas nodded. Good. Now we have somewhere to start. Those therapy sessions were brutal. Becky broke down almost every time, revealing more about Mark's manipulation. How he'd told her I was just waiting for her to move out so I could have Sophia to myself. How he'd convinced her that every kind thing I did was just to look good in front of her mom. One night after a particularly rough session, I found Becky sitting on the back porch. I hesitated, then sat down beside her, leaving plenty of space between us. Can I ask you something? I said after a minute of silence. She nodded, not looking at me. When did you stop calling me Dad? I mean, before all this happened. You used to, when you were little. She seemed surprised by the question. I don't know exactly. When I started talking to Mark, I guess. He got really mad when I mentioned you. Said you weren't my real dad, just some guy trying to replace him. I nodded, trying not to show how much that hurt. I remember when you taught me to ride a bike, she said suddenly. Mark told me that never happened, that he was the one who taught me. But I remember it was you, in that park with the big hill. You ran behind me holding the seat. You skinned your knee when you finally went on your own, I added. But you were so proud you didn't even cry. A ghost of a smile crossed her face. Yeah, progress came in small moments like that. Shared memories that Mark couldn't erase. Trust rebuilding inch by inch. It wasn't just Becky and me who needed healing. Sophia had to process her own guilt and trauma too. She'd spend years thinking she'd protected Becky from Mark's influence, only to discover he'd found a way in anyway. How do we ever trust her again? Sophia asked me late one night, about a month after everything happened. We were lying in bed, finally back in the same room after weeks apart. The same way she has to learn to trust us, I replied. One day at a time, with verification. The school year ended, and Becky's counselor suggested a summer program for teens dealing with parental manipulation. It meant she'd be away for 6 weeks at a special camp, but after some discussion, we all agreed it might be good for her to get perspective away from home. The day we dropped her off, she hugged me awkwardly. I'll text you, she promised. I'd like that, I said, surprised at the offer. Mark wasn't done causing problems, of course. He violated the restraining order twice more, earning himself a brief jail stint. He tried contacting Becky through fake social media accounts, but Dr. Thomas had prepared her for that possibility. She showed us the messages instead of responding. He's still trying to make me feel guilty, she told us, showing us his latest attempt. Says he's all alone because of us. That's manipulative language, Sophia pointed out. Remember what Dr. Thomas said about recognizing those patterns? Becky nodded. Yeah, it's not my job to fix his loneliness. That summer was a turning point for all of us. While Becky was at camp, Sophia and I worked on our own relationship. The trust that had been shattered when she doubted me took time to rebuild. I should have believed you instantly, she said during one of our date nights. I'll never forgive myself for hesitating. You were caught between your husband and your daughter, I reminded her. That's an impossible position. When Becky came home from camp in August, something had shifted. She seemed lighter somehow, less burdened. The camp counselors had helped her understand she wasn't responsible for Mark's happiness or behavior. School started again, and with it came new challenges. The rumors about me hadn't completely died down. Becky came home crying one day because someone had made a comment about her perv stepdad. I told them the truth, she said, wiping her eyes, that my biological dad manipulated me into lying. I was touched that she'd defended me. That took courage. Yeah, well, she shrugged awkwardly. It's the least I could do. My work situation eventually stabilized. I had a long talk with HR, showing them the official documentation clearing my name. Most colleagues were supportive, though a few still gave me side-eye in the break room. My sister Jessica became Becky's unexpected confidant through all this. As someone with no stake in the Mark versus Andrew dynamic, she provided Becky with an outlet to process her feelings without judgment. They'd go for coffee or shopping, just the two of them. She's still confused about a lot of things, Jessica reported after one such outing. But she's trying, Andrew. She really is. By Thanksgiving, we'd established a new normal. Not perfect, but functional. Becky was seeing her own therapist twice a week in addition to our family sessions. Mark had finally backed off after his lawyer explained just how much legal trouble he was facing. During dinner, Becky cleared her throat nervously. I have something for you, Andrew. She handed me a small wrapped package. Inside was a frame with a photo I'd never seen before. Becky, at about age 6, sitting on my shoulders at the zoo. We were both laughing at something off camera. Grandma found it when she was cleaning out her attic, Becky explained. I don't even remember that day, but we looked happy. We were, I confirmed, throat tight with emotion. You wanted to see the giraffes up close, so I hoisted you up. Thanks for being patient with me, she said quietly. I know I don't deserve it. I set the frame down carefully. Everyone deserves a second chance, Becky. Even me. Even you. It wasn't all smooth sailing after that, of course. We still had rough days. Becky still struggled with guilt. I still had moments of doubt and lingering hurt. Sophia still blamed herself. But we were moving forward together. By Christmas, Becky had started occasionally calling me Dad again. Not all the time. Just sometimes, when her guard was down. Each time felt like a gift. On New Year's Eve, as we all sat watching the ball drop on TV, I realized something important. Families aren't perfect. They're messy and complicated, and sometimes they break. But with enough patience and work, they can also heal. When the countdown reached 0, Sophia squeezed my hand. Becky, curled up in the armchair with hot chocolate, caught my eye and gave me a small smile. Happy New Year, Dad, she said quietly, and it was.